Are you too busy? Too stressed out? Unhealthy? Then this is the place for you. Welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, where we help you create wellness and balance with a holistic approach that will work for you, even with the busiest of schedules, so you can live the life you want. And now, here's your host, Diane Randall.
Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk to Ishika Aswani, a relationship counselor and coach. Ishika understands the human psyche and what motivates people into living the lives they live. This has always been her first and most compelling fascination. Ishika's work is in assisting people to transform or change forever their consciousness and hence their lives, or at least the parts of it they would like to experience. She says that each of us is consistently responding in relation to other people, money, work, our bodies, experiences, our goals, how we use our voices, and our will. In some of these relationships, we are already empowered and flourishing, while in others, we feel somewhat debilitated and need a different perspective. Ishika, welcome.
Thank you, Diane.
It's so great to talk to you. I just want to tell you that I'm so grateful that you're here to talk to us today from the other side of the world in Dubai.
I really, really appreciate being on this podcast, Diane. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to just share myself and my views and whatever comes up.
Well, you know, I've always thought you were such a fascinating woman. I mean, I feel you just show up in the world, literally. So I want to ask you, why do you call this relationship counseling?
So this, it's actually taken me almost a year to really describe for myself, or rather to myself, what this work is about. And at first I called it health and well-being counseling, and then I called it wealth counseling, and then I called it all sorts of different things. But at the end of the day, what this work is really about is building a relationship with ourselves. It's about a person building a relationship with themselves. And that's why I like calling it relationship counseling. And when what you mentioned earlier from the bio is that we're constantly in relationship with things and people around us. So we're in relationship with our parents, with our spouses, with our bosses, with our clients, with our friends, with our pets. We're in relationship to money because we respond to money and power in different ways. And we also have a relationship with our voice, for example. It says how we use our voice in our lives or how we don't use our voice. And we have a relationship with our bodies, believe it or not. And, a lot of people actually dislike their body or dislike parts of their bodies. So we're constantly in relationship to or in relationship with our universe, really. And one of the things that you and me both learned at USM when we were in the master's program is one of the principles that says outer world reality is always a reflection of our inner experiences, or rather outer world experiences is a reflection of inner world reality.
Yes, I remember.
Yes, and so this work is really about building a calm, a peaceful, a happy, a joyful, a loving relationship with oneself first. And with my own experience in my life, as well as with the people that I've counseled, friends, family that I've observed and witnessed, once you resolve, or rather once we start resolving or paying attention to the relationship we have with ourselves, I honestly feel that we start having a much better, much easier relationship with other people, with money, with our voice, with our lives, with our bodies. This is powerful.
It's very powerful. And how do someone that's listening to this podcast, how do they start a relationship if they feel they've never had one with themselves?
So I think one of the main faculties that we have and that we may not be using enough of is that of hearing, that of listening. And I would say inner listening, to be able to listen to our own thoughts in a situation, or to be able to tune into and listen to what our body wants or needs in any given moment, or to be able to tune in and listen to how we're feeling in any given moment is a great place to start.
Okay, you talk about in your experiences that if we're not feeling enthusiastic and joyful from within, our external motivation will run short, and this erodes our spirit. Tell me what happens when this occurs.
So I like to say that we live in a time and a society that one can call boot camp in a manner of speaking, because we, at least most of us, get so sucked in or get so drawn in to whatever it is that we're doing, to building our careers or to losing weight, for example, or to moving homes and moving to another country, or whatever it is that we're doing in our lives, whatever actions we're doing. I feel that sometimes a lot of us get so drawn into just the actions and focusing on those action steps alone and everything that goes with it, that we feel the need to keep motivating ourselves. We keep going on a certain path for a long time without realizing that perhaps we're not actually still as comfortable being on that path when we started off. And one of the things that I learned while I was in the master's program as well is something called course correction, something that they call course correction. And for a personality like myself, and like I used to be in the past, a type A personality, that once I set a goal, all I would see and all I would focus on is that end goal. And it almost didn't matter along the way what I did to get there. And that's what I was talking about, that sometimes along the way, there might be like an easier or a more gentler way of getting to the same goal or the same objective, or meeting your objectives, rather than beating yourself into shape or keeping yourself on such a strict regime to get to what it is that you want. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I would just like to add in just hopefully being more loving to yourself.
Absolutely.
I've found that is probably a challenge for many of us initially to just feel more loving, because shame is what many people are used to, to get your attention, you get shamed into a lot of things in our culture, in our society.
Yeah, obligated.
Yes.
You feel guilty and it's important to understand, or it sounds like news to us when someone actually stops us, or for me, for example, in the past, where someone actually stopped me and said, there's actually an easier, more loving, more giving to yourself. There's a easier way to do the same thing that you're doing. And there is always an easier way to do what we're doing.
And initially that sounds like a foreign language, because that isn't the way, we think, that isn't the way we think, or that isn't the way that we are conditioned. So how do you talked about the spirit gets eroded. So how do we strengthen our spirit in this regard?
And so when I talk about spirit, I'm actually talking about our inner selves. And one of the ways to get in touch with your spirit is to actually check in and see how you're feeling about something. And if you're feeling too exhausted, or if you're feeling too resentful, or if you're feeling like everything that you're doing in a particular regard is an uphill task, and you start realizing that there's some dread creeping in. I mean, I've had clients who who've dreaded going to work the next morning. Even though they may be in a field that they love and in a position or a post in a position that they have a lot of passion for.
Where do you think that dread comes from when they love their work, they have a passion for what they're doing, and then they experience this dread? What is the dread about?
Well, it could be different things for different people, but usually what I have come to understand from my work is that no matter where we are in our lives and no matter what we invest ourselves into, life will always present us with bigger challenges. And by challenges, I don't mean these awful, dreaded situations, but what I mean is situations or opportunities which we experience and from which we can grow in our own integrity, grow in our own self-understanding and in understanding other people better. And so no matter where we are and no matter what we're doing, life is always going to bring each one of us opportunities for growth and further development. And so these are going to seem like challenges initially. And so even though a person may be in their dream job, for example, maybe a colleague shows up who tends to bring out certain frustrations or certain fears in this person, for example. And so the person actually then starts to dread going to work because he has to work very closely with his colleague who's always pushing all his buttons and triggering him and bringing out certain frustrations and fears or whatever that might be. And that's what I meant when I said that life brings us certain challenges and situations. And maybe part of the opportunity for this person, for example, would be to build a relationship or to maybe stand his ground and to be able to say no and to be able to have conviction for his own opinions. So like I said, it's different for each person.
Is part of that, as you say, the self-inquiry, which is the way to get to know ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And when I was talking about inner listening being one of the ways to get to understand ourselves better, one of the tools per se, or one of the things that I do on a daily basis is to sit in the silence. And you can call it meditation, and you can just call it self-love, and you can give it whatever name you want to give it. But it's basically sitting in the silence, closing your eyes, and just focusing inward, and just becoming aware of any thoughts or any feelings or any physical discomforts or any physical cues that you may receive, but just sitting in the silence. And that's something that I've realized that a lot of, or most of us actually run away from. We tend to surround ourselves with a lot of people, with a lot of noise, with the FM on at all times, and so noise from outside and conversation from outside would definitely block our capacity at first for inner listening.
Right, because the silence means that I'd have to really listen and hear what's really going on inside.
Yeah, and eventually silence would also mean start becoming aware of the things that I'm uncomfortable about in myself. And then sitting and remaining and consistently being in that practice would mean eventually accepting everything about myself and learning how to be comfortable with my own self and learning how to be patient with myself. You see, many times, like in the spiritual circles, one is taught meditation and we say, oh, well, we're meant to meditate so that we can be present with ourselves. And I didn't completely understand what that meant for me until I actually started my daily practice. Mm-hmm. And for me, when I sit in the silence and I watch my mind go like a zillion miles away from me, and then I bring myself back again to my body, it's just for me, it's just a practice of pacing myself better, whereby my mind can go to the past and it can go to years in the future, and it can go to, I'll be sitting here and I'll be thinking of California or it can go anywhere. And then to sort of become aware of that and then bring my mind back to, okay, here I am, this is me, and just become present with my body. It's just such a beautiful practice. And I think it can really help a person pace themselves better in their lives, because everything's on fast forward mode right now. And partly that's because we don't even live so much in our physical bodies. We actually live more in our minds. We live on the mental plane. I mean, the way life is moving, each of us seems to be living more on the mental plane in our minds, and our minds can take us anywhere, which is probably why we find at times that dragging our bodies along can be tedious, because the mind can move much faster than the body.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it does. And you're right. And the body is just the servant of the mind. So whatever the mind is, wherever the mind is at that moment, the body is just waiting on the command. So if you're not feeling, like you said, enthusiastic or motivated, the body's just not going to feel that way either, because it's just waiting on the mind for the command.
Yes,
That's what I hear you saying. Yeah.
Yes, and in a way, the mind can move so much faster than the body, and I've also experienced this myself, where my mind would literally want to beat my body silly. It's like, move it, move it, move it, move it through the day, through the month, through the year. Move it, do it, do it.
Yeah.
And that's honestly when I think a lot of us experience burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And but then on the other hand, there's also the other. So this burnout and this fast moving motion can be for us in certain aspects of our lives, and yet there are certain other aspects where perhaps in our minds we feel afraid of getting in there and doing certain things or taking certain steps. So the mind may actually be lagging behind, which is when I feel we experience lethargy,
Mm-hmm.
procrastination. It's like when the mind doesn't want to actually keep up with your body and your spirit. It's like we make up our minds sometimes to go ahead with something, and then we experience lethargy and things like that.
You've certainly given us some great ideas and habits we can use to cultivate, to integrate this interconnectedness that you've been sharing with us. What I'd like to ask you about now is tell us about your Empowering You workshops that you do in Dubai.
So that actually started as my second year project when I was doing my master's program in spiritual psychology in 2012, 2013. I actually felt inspired to work with and to connect with women from my culture. So I'm actually Indian, and as you know, I live in Dubai, and I've been here for the last 26 years. And so the Arab and the Indian and the Asian culture is something that is naturally very close to my heart, and very much what I live in. And so I was inspired to connect with women because, to be honest, women inspire me. The fact that we can, as women, have a family, be a parent, and work, whether it's in the corporate world or whether it's as an entrepreneur, whether it's in any professional field, or any creative field, including my dance instructor. She is a Kathak. Kathak is basically an Indian classical dance form.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, women around me, just watching all these different women, whether they're younger, older, the same age as me, it truly inspires me to be a woman, to be honest. And so Empowering You are these group sessions that I set up for women, and I used to host them twice a month. I say used to because the last 3 months I've actually been back to the university, and so there's been a little bit of a gap. So
Okay.
I used to have these group sessions twice a month, and we would choose different topics based on experiences that women usually grapple with in their lives, and based on my own experiences, I would set them up with an introduction, and then I'd get everyone to share their perspective and where it is in their lives that they require more assistance or more clarity, more guidance. And that was basically the format of these sessions. And these are like 3 to 4 hour group sessions that I host.
I remember, I'll read your blog, To Be Bliss, and I know you live in Dubai, and some of the topics I thought were very powerful. Maybe I go, wow, this is courageous. This is a courageous topic in my mind to speak about. So I'm like, wow.
And what was amazing, I mean, and I share your sentiments as well. Initially, I said, so I've been to California, I've been amongst my classmates, and cultures are different, things are different, but at the end of the day, the human experience is actually all pretty much the same. I mean, the human emotions, the emotions that each of us go through, whether it's the grieving process, whether it's getting ecstatic, whether it's feeling motivated, being inspired, whatever it is. The point is that the human experience is blanket. It's like it runs through everyone's psyches, and we all experience pretty much the same thing. But what really blew me away was when these women would come in and surprise me with their openness and their authenticity and their willingness to look at their lives and to be open to stepping out of their comfort zones. I mean, it was just amazing. And in fact, the reason why I call it Empowering You is that the very essence of power, being in power and having power, is more so an external thing. Looked at it one way, it's like trying to be in control of and being powerful over other people, whereas empowering comes from within. It's when we feel authentic and free in ourselves, and like you said earlier, when we are in our own loving with ourselves, that's when we truly feel empowered to show up in our lives and be authentic and be truthful and contribute in that way to other people's lives. And then that's why I call it Empowering You, because the idea is to look inward and to look at the things that people want to shift or change their perspectives about on the inside of themselves, looking outward.
Before you started your Empowering You workshops, were these type of workshops available in Dubai?
Well, now over the last 5 years, the health and well-being industry is definitely growing in Dubai, as far as I know.
Okay.
And in a much more bigger and an open way. And there are a lot of centers here now that offer different sorts of modalities like Reiki and pranic healing and other kinds of like theta healing and different things. So for sure, there are different avenues for people to explore themselves and their lives and their consciousness. But to be honest, I'm not aware of any one specific place or any one specific program that offers an inside-out, proactive approach to shifting and raising consciousness.
Which is what you offer, and that
Which
is
what
beautiful and so pioneering. But I also feel that the world is ready. I feel that, at least the energy I feel from a lot of people. People are ready. They're ready.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us, Ishika. It's been a wonderful experience. You are such a powerful woman. I've always felt that way, which is why I really wanted to invite you to share your work that you do.
Diane, thank you very much for your kind words. And this is inspiring to me to again restart Empowering You and continue doing this work here. It really is.
It's wonderful. So I want to thank you. And if anyone's interested in contacting Ishika Aswani, her blog link will be in the show notes. To Be Bliss is the blog. She also has a one-time offer for a private session. That link will also be in the show notes for anyone that is interested. And there's also a book recommendation. One small step can change your life, the Kaizen way, and I'll also have that link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know what you think about the podcast.
Thank you for listening to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. This podcast is sponsored by DianeRandallConsults.com. If you like this show, the best way to support it is by leaving 5-star feedback on iTunes. And please, feel free to email your questions, comments, and suggestions to feedback@DianeRandallConsults.com. Until next week, namaste.